This happened a few months ago. I'm Lucy, 32, and I work as a nurse in the emergency department. I took this night shift job to help support my family while I finished my nursing degree. Moving back to my hometown wasn't easy. The hospital is old, built in the late 70s, full of long, dimly lit corridors and flickering fluorescent lights. During the day, it felt normal, but at night, things changed. I still can't shake off the things I experienced during those shifts. On my first night shift, I was checking in on patients, watching the twilight fade outside. Everything was quiet, except for the buzz of machines. Then I heard it. A tap, tap, tap on the window next to the nurse's station. I thought maybe it was just the wind, so I brushed it off. Still, I felt uneasy. I couldn't explain why, but dread hung around me for the rest of that shift. The second night was different, but the tapping returned. This time it was louder, steady. I stood up, my heart racing, and walked to the window. As I reached it, something moved just outside. A dark shape skittered away. I gasped and squinted, but I saw nothing. "Calm down, Lucy. It's nothing," I told myself. But the fear tightened in my chest, and I couldn't shake the feeling. I left that night wondering if my mind was playing tricks. On the third night, things escalated. I had just finished taking care of a patient when the tapping started again. It felt almost like a warning, mixed with muffled cries echoing from somewhere down the empty halls. I walked around, trying to find the source. The air felt heavy. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling cold. I didn't know if I was just tired, but I wanted to cry. Standing at the window again, I saw a figure in scrubs. I froze. It looked like a nurse walking by, but when I blinked, they vanished. My heart raced faster. Was I tired? Confused? I wanted to believe it was just another nurse on break, but my thoughts spiraled. The tapping grew louder, and the cries became more pronounced, twisting in the air like a bad dream. Just when I thought I could compartmentalize it all, I heard a whisper behind me. "Why are you here?" It felt icy, a voice that didn't belong to anyone. I turned, heart racing, but the hallway was empty. I felt a wave of panic. Maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I was in over my head. I pushed through the fear. Again, I heard the tapping and pressing whispers. I wanted to find out what it was, but I was scared. Whatever was out there had my attention. I didn't know what it wanted, but the night shift went on, chilling me to the core. I still hear that tapping. I don't think I'll ever find out what was outside those walls, but I can't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was watching me that night. That next night, I barely slept before my shift. I knew I had to be alert. I faced returning to that eerie hospital, and I felt the weight of dread sitting heavily on my chest.
As soon as I clocked in, the shifting shadows of the hallways seemed to stretch and curl, warning me that something was off. The night rolled on quietly, but I couldn't focus. Between checking on patients, I kept glancing over my shoulder. The tapping was gone, but I heard other noises, soft, almost imperceptible murmurs that tugged at something deep in my chest. I chalked it up to the overactive imagination of a tired mind, but that didn't help ease my discomfort. Around midnight, I decided I needed to shake off the unease. I took a break in the break room, where the fluorescent lights buzzed and fought to keep the darkness at bay. I brewed some coffee, hoping it would ignite a spark of alertness before I plunged back into the labyrinth of sickness and shadows. As I refreshed my mug, the quiet of the break room filled with a soft clatter. It was a small stack of plastic cups. They teetered for a moment, and then one rolled off the counter and hit the floor. My heart plunged. I thought about checking the hallway, but it felt safer to stay in the break room. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, but the moment passed as quickly as it came. Gathering my courage, I stepped outside into the hallway. The stark brightness of the break room made the dim corridor feel like entering a different world. I resumed my rounds, and just as I turned the corner toward the ICU, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of cartwheels rolling across the tiled floor. My pulse quickened, and I walked faster, almost convinced I would find another nurse pushing a supply cart. But there was no one. The hallway was empty and silent, just like the others. I tried to reason with myself. "It's just an echo. It's just a building settling," I whispered nervously. yet the air felt charged, full of an energy I couldn't quite name. I reached the nurse's station, trying to shake off my jitters, when I felt a slight chill caress my back. I turned abruptly, half expecting to see someone standing there. But again, it was just darkness, whispering at the edges of the flickering lights. That was when I noticed a door ajar at the far end of the hallway, one I knew led to an old storage area. It wasn't supposed to be open. I glanced around, half hoping someone else might be close enough to confirm it. It was empty, just me in the shadows. The whispers grew louder, a murmur that seemed to echo between the walls, and I found myself moving toward the door despite all the warning bells in my mind. Suddenly, a loud crash came from inside the storage room. My breath hitched. I hesitated, feet frozen. This wasn't the same quiet I had experienced before. This was different. Something was definitely in there. I thought about calling for help, but I found my legs carrying me forward. I had to know. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and gripped the doorknob. Before I could open it, the whispers reached a crescendo. "Lucy." The chill deepened. Then everything went dark.
I gasped as my senses returned, jolted by the sudden return of light piercing through the darkness. I found myself lying on the cold tile floor of the hallway, disoriented and breathing heavily. I could faintly hear murmurs, more intense now, and I struggled to sit up. My hands trembled. I needed to find out what it wanted. Caution warred with curiosity. Finally, I took a step forward. As I approached the door, I noticed a small object on the floor where I had fallen. It was a shiny key, small and ancient, almost like something out of a fairy tale. I picked it up, feeling its weight in my palm, and stared at the keyhole on the door. It was so tempting. Would this key fit? The whispers intensified for a moment, and then faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. I hesitated, my finger hovering near the door handle. What was I expecting to find? Or was I just creating more chaos for myself? In that moment, another sound broke the quiet. A soft, panicked voice calling from the far end of the hall. "Help! Someone, please!" It was a woman's voice, trembling with fear. My heart raced. I had to decide. The key? The scream? Against my better judgment, I turned toward the voice. It pulled me like a magnet. As I hurried down the hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching from the shadows. Paranoia crept in, and with every step, the air thickened. I finally reached the nursing station, and my heart sank. There was no one around. The empty chairs loomed like forgotten sentinels. I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" My voice echoed back, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Then I heard it again. "Help! Lucy!" I spun around, panic surging. The voice was unmistakable. It was my sister's. My mind reeled. She wasn't supposed to be here. This was impossible. I had to get to her. I rushed toward the nearest patient room, hoping it was just a cruel trick of the mind. I pushed open the door, but the room was unoccupied. My breath quickened as I stepped back into the hall, uncertainty gnawing at me. "Lucy," the voice pleaded again, closer now. I felt a surge of urgency. It was coming from the stairwell. Without another thought, I sprinted in that direction, my own heartbeat roaring in my ears. As I reached the stairwell door, it creaked open slowly, as if inviting me in. I exchanged glances with the shadows looming around me, and took a step inside. But just before I could turn the corner to descend, I heard something uncanny. A figure stood at the bottom of the stairs, swathed in darkness. "Help me," it whispered. My stomach dropped. I froze. This was no longer just a call for help. It was a warning. I blinked a few times, waiting for the figure to step into the light. My instincts flipped into high gear. I didn't want to be here. I wanted to run. But something, some invisible pull, anchored me in place. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure didn't move. It remained there, cloaked in darkness. The dread coiling in my stomach felt like a tangible thing. I shifted my weight, and that's when I heard the sound. A soft creaking, like the groan of wood under pressure. The figure began to advance, lingering in the shadows as if it wanted to shield itself from the light above. "Lucy!" the voice cried again, echoing from somewhere deeper within the building. "Help!" I made a decision. There was no way I could ignore my sister's cries. Like a shot, I darted down the stairs, my feet clamoring for speed. "I'm coming!" I shouted, hoping it would reach her before the darkness swallowed me whole. As I neared the landing, the air thickened, pressing against my chest. I looked around, trying to identify the source of her voice. Was it coming from behind a door? A room down the hallway? I needed information. I needed to know what I was up against. Each step felt like a risk, but I couldn't stop. The once ambulance-cool linoleum felt scalding underfoot. I turned the corner into the corridor and found it just as empty as before. I instinctively gripped the key in my pocket, searching for some sense of protection. "Lucy!" The scream pierced through the silence again, now mixed with an unmistakable edge of panic. I hurried toward the staff lounge, convinced I might find her behind those closed doors. But when I pushed the door open, I was met with emptiness, save for shadows playing tricks in the corner of my eye. "Where are you?" I cried desperately. My heart pounded, the weight of uncertainty urging me to question everything. Why did I hear her voice? Was this all in my head? Then, from the corner of my sight, I caught a fleeting glimpse of movement. My breath hitched as I spun around, but there was nothing but the dim light flickering from the broken overhead bulbs. The silence roared louder, swallowing my thoughts. That's when I saw it, a reflection, something shiny just beyond the door I had ignored before. My gut wrenched as I approached it. The small storage room door hung slightly ajar. The weight of dread pressed against my shoulders. The key, still in my pocket, felt like it was vibrating. I reached out and pushed the door open wider, revealing darkness beyond. "Lucy," I whispered, my voice trembling. Nothing. But then I heard it again, a whisper just on the edge of perception. "It's in here." This time, I didn't hesitate. I stepped into the void, knowing that every instinct screamed for me to back away. But the voices, the figure, my sister, it was all too tangled to ignore. I needed to confront whatever lay ahead.
As I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. The sound of the door slamming echoed in the small room, jolting me from my thoughts. I spun around, heart racing, trying to grasp the reality of my situation. I was utterly alone in the darkness, the air heavy with a strange energy. "Lucy?" I called again, more timidly this time. Despair crept into my voice. What if I was just chasing shadows? A sudden rustle sent my heart into a frenzy. I felt my palms turn clammy as I turned back to face the small room. It was filled with dull, old equipment, but something caught my eye at the far end. An old mirror, its surface distorted and cloudy. I edged closer, compelled to investigate. The dim light from the flickering bulb barely lit the space, but as I neared, I could make out something in the reflection. A whisper of movement. My pulse quickened. I stepped back, but the reflection beckoned me forward. I approached the mirror, straining to see through the grime. "Lucy?" I framed the word on my lips, barely a breath. Nothing. Just the shadows playing their tricks again. But then I saw it. A flash of movement behind me. It felt like a cold breath against my neck, and I spun around. The room was still. Empty. "Get it together," I muttered to myself, just to break the suffocating silence. But deep down, I felt the anxiety curling in my chest again. I took a deep breath and forced myself to focus. I couldn't give in to fear. Without thinking, I reached for the key in my pocket and held it tightly. It felt solid, grounding. I crept to the back of the room, closer to the mirror. As I got nearer, I could finally see why it sparkled even in this gloom. Something shiny was lodged behind it. I leaned in closer, Curiosity piqued. Just then I heard it, a faint but distinct creaking sound, like someone stepping cautiously. My heart raced again. This time it wasn't just my imagination. Someone was here. I took a step back, feeling the cold sweat trickle down my spine. Before I could process what to do next, the mirror rattled as if someone had pushed against it from behind. A sudden crash of glass shattered the tension, and I instinctively darted to the side, pressing against the wall. My mind raced. I had a choice to make. I could run, but I wouldn't leave Lucy behind. And what if the figure I had seen before was waiting for me outside? I had to face whatever was in here. As I steadied my breath, something slipped into view in the shattered mirror. A reflection of a figure standing behind me. I turned slowly, fear gripping my throat. But there was nothing there. Just the shadows blending into the shadows, tricking my mind yet again. My resolve hardened. I had to find Lucy. I wasn't leaving without her. As I moved back toward the room's exit, my heart pounding, I noticed another door in the corner I hadn't seen before. It was slightly ajar, casting a sliver of darkness even deeper than the shadows around me.
I could hear something. A soft whisper again. This time clearer, more insistent. I hesitated at the doorway, acutely aware that this was a point of no return. I stepped closer. I stepped into the dark space beyond the door, my footfalls echoing against the concrete floor. The whisper grew louder, now sounding more like a plea than an echo. The voice wrapped around me, a chilling invitation I couldn't ignore. I squinted into the darkness. The air felt different here, thicker, almost like a curtain of tension hanging above me. I took another step, and then another, drawn deeper into the unknown. The door creaked as it swung back, revealing a narrow hallway lined with faded photographs. They seemed to watch me as I moved past, the eyes of strangers frozen in time. I paused to take a deep breath, steeling myself. Just a few steps farther, and I would find out where the voice was coming from. I could almost hear Lucy's laughter, a reminder of the friendship we shared, now haunting me in this forsaken place. I wouldn't fail her now. Suddenly, the ground beneath me trembled, and I struggled to maintain my balance. A low rumble vibrated through the air, followed by the sound of metal scraping against wood. I froze. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice shaking. This time there was no response, just an eerie silence thick enough to cut with a knife. I glanced over my shoulder to where the door had been, and for a moment the thought of retreating flashed through my mind. But what if Lucy was waiting for me? I shook off the fear and continued forward, determined to uncover the truth. The hallway twisted and turned, leading me to another door on my right. It was slightly ajar, much like the first. I pushed it open slowly, wincing at the creak of the hinges. Inside, an old storage room filled with dusty boxes greeted me. A single flickering bulb hung from the ceiling, casting erratic shadows that danced around the room. As I scanned my surroundings, my eyes landed on a box in the corner, taped up and covered with a thick layer of dust. My instincts kicked in. I needed to know what was inside, even if it terrified me. I crossed the room and knelt down, ripping off the lid. Inside were various objects, old uniforms, medical supplies, and something wrapped in burlap. I pulled it out carefully, feeling its weight in my hands. My fingers brushed against the fabric, revealing a small, tarnished locket. My heart raced as I pried it open, revealing an image of a girl who looked eerily like Lucy. Then I heard it, a loud bang behind me, like the slam of a door. I spun around, clutching the locket tighter, but the room was empty. The whisper returned, only this time it was closer, more insistent.
I felt the walls closing in as I fumbled for the door, but I couldn't find it. The whisper grew louder, echoing in my ears like a chant. "Help me." My heart raced as the air felt electrified. That wasn't just a voice, it was a cry for help, one that threatened to consume me. I had to escape this haunting abyss. And that's when I heard it, footsteps approaching, deliberate and slow, cutting through the silence. Someone was in the room with me. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. The footsteps were deliberate, each one echoing through the darkness like a countdown. The whisper faded, but the sense of urgency grew thicker, pressing against my chest. I strained to listen, trying to identify where the sound was coming from. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaky and uncertain. The footsteps paused, and for a brief moment, everything was still. I felt the rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins, urging me to take action, but I was paralyzed by fear. Then I heard a soft rustling, something shifting just beyond my sight. It sent chills scampering down my spine. I had no choice. I had to move. I took a careful step back, trying to feel my way toward the door in the pitch-black room. My fingers brushed against the wall, finding the texture of peeling paint and old mortar. Suddenly, the flickering lights buzzed back to life, illuminating the room with harsh glare. I winced as the light revealed a figure standing just inside the door. My heart leaped into my throat, and I stumbled back, nearly falling over the box I had opened earlier. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. The figure remained still, cloaked in shadows. This wasn't just random fear. It felt like a presence anchoring me in place. I'm not here to hurt you," the voice finally replied. It was low and raspy, like gravel scraping against stone. I squinted to see the face, but the light was unkind, casting shadows that obscured everything. "Please, help me." Every instinct screamed for me to run, but the plea wrapped around my heart. The voice sounded familiar, yet distant, like an echo from a past I couldn't quite grasp. I took a cautious step forward, my pulse racing. "What do you need?" "I need to be freed." Before I could process the weight of those words, the locket I dropped began to emanate a faint glow, illuminating the space between us. I turned to the object on the floor, bewildered. The image of Lucy shone bright against the darkness, sending a wave of warmth through my body. That's when I looked up again, and the figure was closer. Its face became clearer. I gasped. It was the girl from the locket, the one who looked so much like Lucy. "Who are you?" I whispered, stepping back in disbelief. But as I did, the lights flickered again. The girl's face twisted with sorrow, fading away like smoke. "Help me." She vanished, and the room descended back into deep shadows. "Wait," I shouted, my voice echoing around me. Panic set in, and I desperately searched for the door I had come through. In the swirling darkness, the whispered plea returned, layered with urgency. "Help me, please." I turned back toward where the voice had last been, but it was empty. Cold chill wrapped itself around my heart. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't leave her. This was all about Lucy, and I was determined to find out how she was connected. Just then, I noticed a narrow staircase ascending through a doorway at the far end of the storage room. With every ounce of courage, I moved toward it, my hand brushing the cool metal railing. I took a deep breath, heart pounding. If the girl from the locket was real, then there had to be answers waiting for me up there. And before I climbed the stairs, I heard a final whisper, more urgent than before. "Don't leave. You have to help us." With that warning echoing in my ears, I steeled myself and stepped into the unknown. The stairs creaked under my weight as I ascended, each step amplifying the silence around me. I could feel the darkness tightening its grip, swallowing the light below. It was unsettling. The urgency in the girl's voice pulsed in my mind, pushing me forward even as fear gnawed at my resolve. At the top of the stairs,
I found a narrow hallway lined with faded photographs. They showed families, smiling faces frozen in time. I hesitated, a tightness in my chest. What if I was walking into a trap? But that whisper, "Help us," was still echoing in my ears. I couldn't turn back now. I picked up the pace, my footsteps muffled by the thick carpet that lined the hallway. As I passed each photo, I glanced at the faces. A chill ran down my spine when I spotted another girl, one who looked just like Lucy. Her bright smile contrasted with the heavy atmosphere around me. Why were they all here? A door at the end of the hallway caught my attention. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness spilling out into the corridor. I stepped closer, curiosity pushing me ahead. My heart raced as I gripped the doorknob, but just as I was about to turn it, I heard it again, a faint whisper, more frantic this time. "Please!" I flung the door open and stepped inside. The room was cluttered with dusty furniture, shadows clinging to each corner. In the center stood a large mirror, its surface coated with a layer of grime. As I approached, I felt a chill run through the air. I could see my reflection, but something was off. Behind me, the darkened doorway flickered. "Who's there?" I called, spinning around. "Nothing." I turned back to the mirror, my breath catching as the image shifted. The same girl, the one from the locket, was standing behind me, her face warped with fear. I whipped around again, but she was gone. My heart raced as I realized she was trapped in the reflection. "Help me," she pleaded, her breath visible in the chilly air. "What do you want from me?" I cried, desperation creeping into my voice. "How can I help you?" "Find the key. It's the only way." Before I could respond, the lights flickered overhead. A loud bang echoed from the hallway, making me jump. Panic surged through me. Was someone coming? I cursed under my breath. I had to figure out what the key was, but first I needed to get out of this room. I turned to bolt back to the hallway, but as I reached the door, it slammed shut in front of me. I twisted the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. The whisper returned, dark and full of dread. "You shouldn't be here." A shiver ran down my spine as I pressed my back against the cold, hard door. Whoever or whatever was lurking beyond wanted me to stay trapped. That's when I noticed it, a glint of metal peeking from under a nearby dresser. My breath caught in my throat. Was that the key? Driven by a new sense of urgency, I dropped to my knees and slid my hand beneath the dusty edge. I grasped the cold object, pulling it free. Just as I stood up, the door rattled violently. The shadowy presence beyond seemed to be trying desperately to get in. I had to move fast. Would this key really unlock whatever was keeping the girl trapped? Or had I just unleashed something worse? An unsettling thought washed over me, but there was no time. I glanced back at the mirror before bolting for the door. The girl from the reflection stared back, her eyes wide with dread. I turned the key in the lock as the door shook again, feeling a rush of resolve. Whatever happened next would determine if I could help her, or if I'd fall prey to the darkness lurking behind me. I twisted the key with all my strength, praying it would turn. The door groaned in protest, but finally gave way. I burst through as quick as I could and stumbled into the hallway. My heart raced as I cast a glance over my shoulder, expecting to see some vile creature leaping through the doorway, but it remained dark and still. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. The moment I stepped into the hallway, an icy draft whisked past, chilling me to the bone. I pressed on, glancing nervously at the darkened corners. The urgent whisper from the girl in the mirror haunted me still. "Find the key." It echoed like a taunt in my mind. I had the key, but what did it unlock? I didn't have time to ponder. The darkness felt alive around me. My instincts screamed that I needed to find answers, and fast. As I raced down the hallway, I searched for any sign of what I might be looking for. At the end of the corridor, I spotted another door, this one closed tightly, with no sign of light escaping underneath it. Could there be something important behind it? The whisper seemed to intensify as I approached, a cacophony of pleading and despair mixing into a desperate chorus. I reached for the doorknob, but hesitated. What if I opened it and unleashed something terrible? What if there was no escape? My pulse quickened, but I remembered the girl. She was trapped. I had to try. With a forceful twist, I opened the door. The hinges squealed in protest, and a wave of stale air hit me like a brick wall. Inside, the room was even darker than the hallway, the faint outline of furniture casting eerie shadows against the walls. I stepped inside, feeling the hairs on my neck stand on end. My eyes quickly adjusted, and I could make out a small table pushed against one wall. On top of it sat an old, dust-covered jewelry box. Heart pounding, I approached it cautiously. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. As I reached for the box, a chilling realization hit me. What if I was meant to find more than just the key? I lifted the lid, half expecting a gust of wind to knock me back. Inside lay a faded photograph, its edges worn. I pulled it out, the atmosphere pressing in around me. The image showed the same girl from the mirror, the one who beckoned for help. But this time there were more faces, others standing beside her. Their eyes were hollow, sunken in a way that sent a shudder through me. I flipped the photograph over and found a date scribbled in the corner, April 12th, 1985. "Help us," I whispered to myself, trying to comprehend what I was looking at. Who were all these people? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway, followed by the sound of footsteps. I froze, fear taking hold. The shadowy presence was here, and it didn't sound happy. I hastily shoved the photograph back into my pocket and turned towards the door just as it burst open. A figure cloaked in darkness stood in the entrance, blocking my escape. "Leave," it growled, its voice distorted and raspy. I stumbled back, my heart hammering. There was nowhere to go. I had to confront this, whatever it was, if I was going to save the girl trapped in the mirror. But was I ready to face the darkness? The answer seemed to swirl with uncertainty as I stood there, paralyzed. My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline surging as I stood face to face with the shadowy figure blocking my path. The whispers from the girl in the mirror faded, replaced by an overpowering sense of dread. This creature, the embodiment of all the fear and confusion I had encountered in the hospital, fueled my instincts to flee, but I knew I couldn't run. "Please," I managed to say, my voice trembling. "I'm here to help." The figure advanced, the darkness coalescing around it, shaping its features into something grotesque, almost human-like. It opened its mouth to speak, but no words emerged. Instead, a chill swept through the room, as if the very air had turned to ice. My thoughts raced as I recalled the photograph I had just seen, the faces of those trapped and terrified. Their pain felt like a tether, connecting me to the girl in the mirror and urging me to confront this menace. "What do you want from me?" I shouted defiantly, drawing strength from the urgency in my chest. "What do you need to be freed?" The creature halted, and a flicker of recognition crossed its featureless face.
"Only the key," it rasped, emotion flickering in its voice like a dying flame. "To unlock what binds us." My hand instinctively reached for the key in my pocket, and I hesitated, sensing its heavy weight. Despite the terror surrounding me, a small part of my mind filled with a strange resolve. I had come this far. I couldn't let doubt claim me now. "Is this what you mean?" I asked, holding up the key in front of me, feeling its cold metal become warm in my palm. The apparition recoiled slightly, its form wavering in the flickering light. "You must choose." It drifted further away from me, shadows bending around its figure like flowing ink. "Will you use it to help us?" I fought to steady my breathing, processing the choice before me. In that moment, everything I had experienced, the tapping, the whispers, the presence consuming me, began to connect like pieces of a puzzle. This wasn't just about me, it was about every soul caught in this limbo. "I won't turn my back on you," I said firmly, moving toward the flickering light of the doorway. "You deserve freedom." With that declaration, I stepped forward, thrusting the key toward the figure. The moment it touched the darkness radiating from it, a tremor of light burst forth, scattering the shadows belting around the room in a blinding eruption of light. I felt something shift, the air swirling around me like a storm as I was enveloped in brightness. Everything became a whirlwind, colors and echoes smashing against the walls of my consciousness. A rush of ancient sorrow swept through me, pulling from the depths of the hospital's history. Then, just as quickly as it began, everything went still. I landed back on the cold floor with a thud, gasping as I blinked against the darkness that clung to the corners of the room.
I looked around, but the oppressive presence had vanished. The silence felt almost comforting now, though I could still hear the distant echoes of longing. I staggered to my feet, disoriented, scanning the confines of the room. The mirror stood intact, but the haunting girl was gone, her reflection replaced with my own, a tired and bewildered face staring back. I pushed open the door, stepping back into the hallway, curiosity igniting once more. The lights flickered gently, the atmosphere shifting to one that felt less suffocating. The air no longer bore the weight of despair. Instead, it felt brighter, lighter. Yet, the shadows remained at the edges. I walked back toward the nursing station, the weight of uncertainty still heavy on my heart. I had unlocked something, released some hidden power, but at what cost? I thought of the photograph and the fab souls. My sister's voice echoed in my mind. Help me. Even as I could still feel her presence lingering, just beneath the surface. I hadn't found her, and I couldn't help but wonder if she would still come to me. As I made my way through the hospital's corridors, I sensed that the night was still full of mysteries.
Had I truly ended the darkness, or was it merely waiting, entwined with the fabric of the building? I would never truly know. As I left the hospital for the last time, I felt the daunted grip of fear lessen, but never completely disappear. I turned to look back one last time before driving away, knowing that even if some doors had closed, others remained ajar, waiting, watching. I moved to a different city soon after that, but sometimes I still feel the weight of the unseen, wondering if the shadows still linger where I once stood. The nightmares haven't entirely faded, nor have the whispers in the dark. I guess some questions will always remain unanswered.